This is Ghosts of Asia, a channel where ancient whispers bleed into modern walls, where forgotten rituals claw their way through steel and glass, where spirits don't rest beneath temple stones. They hide in elevators, smartphones, and sometimes behind the door you dare not open. Tonight, we invite you to listen. Not to screams, not to monsters, but to silence. The kind of silence that follows you home. The kind that breathes behind your ear in the dark. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a warning. At an elite school in Seoul, there is a restroom no one uses. A floor that was sealed but never cleansed. A stall without a number. Some say it was walled up after a tragedy. Others say something still scratches from the inside. But one girl, a transfer student, made the mistake of opening it. She didn't just find a ghost, she found the truth, and no one will remember her name. Welcome to the 13th toilet stall. The rain had been falling since dawn, thin, steady, and metallic, like a whisper sliding down the windows of Seoul's endless glass towers. By the time Se-jin reached the gates of Hanul Academy, her umbrella had collapsed twice, and her shoes were soaked through. The guard didn't look up when she showed her ID. He simply waved her in, eyes fixed on the CCTV feed glowing in black and white. She didn't know it yet, but that feed was missing something. A blind spot no one ever mentioned. The school looked perfect from the outside. Marble lobby, motion sensor lights, a faint smell of detergent and wet uniforms. But something about the air felt off, like a faint electric hum beneath the noise of rain. It pressed against her chest. She told herself it was just nerves, a new school, a new start. That's what she wanted to believe. In class, no one said hello. Her seat was by the window, third row, farthest to the right. A pale girl with braided hair whispered to her friend, eyes darting toward Se-jin. "That's her seat, isn't it? Shh! Don't talk about it." Se-jin pretended not to hear. She unpacked her book slowly, noticing a faint scratch on the desk's surface. A line, then another, intersecting into what looked like a name. But it was half scraped off. Only the last letters remained. Yon. When she asked who sat there before, her homeroom teacher gave a polite smile. "No one. The records were updated. Welcome, Se-jin." The way he said it felt too practiced, like someone who'd already told that lie before. At lunch, she explored. The school was built in layers, new glass hallways grafted onto an old stone foundation. The architecture didn't match. The stairs seemed to lead to nowhere. And then there was the fourth floor, locked behind a metal door marked "Under Maintenance." She saw a light flicker behind the glass, just for a second, and then a shadow moved. That afternoon, as the final bell rang, Se-jin followed the janitor, an older man with a bent back and a limp, up the stairwell. He was muttering to himself, carrying a mop and a jangling ring of keys. "Excuse me," she called. "Why is the fourth floor closed?" He stopped mid-step, slowly turned his head. His eyes were cloudy, but alert. "You don't need to go there," he said softly. "Some doors are sealed for a reason." Then he added under his breath, "Even the walls don't like to remember." That night, in her dorm room, Se-jin couldn't sleep. The rain hadn't stopped. She scrolled through the school's online forum, posts about exams, cafeteria food, gossip. But buried deep in the archives, one old thread caught her eye. 2014, Urban Legends of Hanul Academy. User 6b.lotus. If you go to the old girls' restroom at 2:13 a.m., you'll hear someone knocking from inside the sealed stall. Don't answer. If you do, she'll ask your name, and then she'll take it. Se-jin laughed nervously. Teenagers, rumors, nothing more. But when she turned off her phone, the dorm went quiet. Too quiet. Somewhere in the dark, she thought she heard dripping water, not from her bathroom, but from inside the wall behind her bed. And beneath it, a soft, uneven sound, like someone breathing. The next morning she woke to find muddy footprints leading from her door to the center of the room. Bare feet, small, childlike. But the floor had been locked all night. No one could have entered. When she reported it to the dorm matron, the woman frowned. "You're in room 213, correct?" "Yes." "Strange," she murmured. "No one stayed in that room for years." Se-jin froze. "Why?" The matron hesitated, then forced a smile. "It was just storage, don't worry." But her eyes lingered on the floor number as if it carried weight, as if 213 meant something more. That evening, as the sun bled over the skyline, Se-jin wandered back to the main building. The hallways were empty now, the tiles echoing under her shoes. On the third floor, she paused near a stairwell. A faint draft brushed her hair. Someone had left a door slightly ajar. It was the fourth-floor door, the one marked "Under Maintenance." Her hand trembled as she pushed it open. The air was colder up there, stale and thick. The lights flickered. She followed the narrow corridor until she reached a door with a sign, "Girls' Restroom, out of order." The handle was rusted, but beneath the grime, someone had etched something into the metal. 13. Her breath caught. There were supposed to be only 12 stalls. She remembered the blueprint from the school app. 12, not 13. But the corridor stretched a little farther than it should have, as if space itself had shifted to hide something. Se-jin leaned closer. The air behind the door smelled like wet earth. And then she heard it, a faint knock from the other side of the door. Not urgent, not loud, just patient. 3 times. Then a whisper, dry as dust. "Is someone there?" Her pulse stuttered. She stepped back, trembling. The corridor light flickered once, twice, and went out completely. In that brief, crushing darkness, she saw a shape crouched under the crack of the door, pale fingers pressed against the tiles. Then, silence. When the lights flickered back on, the door was closed, and the number 13 was gone. That night, Se-jin dreamed of a stall dripping with red water. A shadow with long hair crouched behind it, whispering her name. When she woke, her phone screen glowed faintly in the dark. One new message. No number. Just text. "Thank you for answering." The next morning, the school returned to its quiet routine. Too quiet for a campus full of hundreds of students. Seo-jin sat at her desk, staring at the half-scratched name carved into the wood. The teachers spoke, classmates gossiped, papers rustled, but all of it felt distant, like she was watching the day through a pane of glass. She didn't sleep well. She couldn't stop thinking about the whisper. "Thank you for answering." She hadn't replied. Not out loud, But maybe that didn't matter. Maybe opening the door, just a little, was already enough. By third period, the unease in her chest had grown sharp, like a needle threading through her thoughts. She kept glancing over her shoulder, expecting to see someone standing behind her, a student maybe, or a teacher. But every time, there was no one. At lunch, she sat alone beneath the main staircase. Across the atrium, the janitor she'd spoken to before was polishing a glass display case full of trophies. He caught her looking and gave the faintest shake of his head. "Don't." She didn't listen. That evening, long after the final bell, Seo-jin waited in the shadows until the school lights dimmed and the front security guard made his rounds. She pressed herself against the wall as he passed. She'd never broken a rule before. Not really. But something about the fourth floor kept pulling her back, like it had chosen her. The locked stairwell door was ajar again. The air that greeted her was cold, unnaturally so. A clean, clinical chill, like something kept in storage too long. As she stepped inside, her phone lost signal. The hallway buzzed faintly overhead, the fluorescent lights flickering in a soft, sickly rhythm. This floor hadn't been used in years, but it was still intact. The hallway walls were older here, cracked white tile instead of the new glass and steel of the rest of the building. A row of dusty lockers stood silent. One of them hung open, its hinges rusted and bent. She passed a science lab, then a language room, then the restroom. The door still bore the faded, out-of-order sign, but now the door looked newer than the rest of the hall, like it had been replaced more recently. Someone was trying to keep people out, but something inside wanted in. Seo-jin hesitated only a moment before stepping forward and pressing her hand to the cold metal handle. It was locked. Of course it was. She turned away. But then she noticed something that made her blood run cold. To the left of the door, the wall jutted out slightly, a poor patch job that didn't line up with the tiles around it. The sealant along the base was uneven, as if something had been walled in hastily. A chill passed through her. She crouched and ran her hand along the edge of the floor. The seam wasn't stone, it was hollow. There should have been 12 stalls, but the shape of the room extended farther than that, and the number etched in the metal, 13, it wasn't a prank, it was a warning. Suddenly she heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. 3 soft raps from beyond the wall. Then a whisper, barely audible, but unmistakable. "Are you still there?" Seo-jin stumbled back, heart pounding. The voice was wrong. It didn't sound human, not entirely. It was breathy, uneven, like someone who hadn't spoken in a long time or didn't know how to anymore. She turned and ran. That night, in her dorm, her roommate Jae-yoon noticed something was off. "You look pale," she said, brushing out her long black hair. "Did something happen?" Seo-jin hesitated. "Can I ask you something weird?" Jae-yoon smiled. "Go ahead, the school's full of weird." "Have you ever heard of a 13th stall?" Jae-yoon's face changed, not obviously, just the slightest shift. The brush in her hand paused. Her smile didn't fully disappear, but it faltered. "Who told you that?" "No one. I just—" Seo-jin swallowed. "I went to the 4th floor." Jae-yoon stood, walking to the window. "You shouldn't be up there." "Why? What is it?" She didn't answer right away. She stared out into the night, her voice suddenly low. There was a girl, years ago. They say she stayed behind in one of the stalls during a fire drill or something, but no one found her until weeks later. She died? No body, Jae-yoon said softly. Only blood and fingernail scratches on the inside of the door. Seo-jin's chest tightened. What happened to her? They walled the stall off. Jae-yoon turned around. They thought that would be the end of it. Was it? Jae-yoon didn't answer. Later that night, Seo-jin lay awake, staring at the ceiling. She could hear Jae-yoon's steady breathing nearby, the soft rustle of the curtains in the breeze, and then something else, dripping. Not from the sink, not from the ceiling. It was coming from under the bed. She leaned over the edge slowly. Nothing, just darkness. But then a flicker of movement, a long, pale hand, barely visible, retreating into the shadows. She screamed, jerking away. The lights came on. Jae-yoon sat up, confused. What happened? Seo-jin couldn't speak. The room was empty again, but the floor beneath her was wet. The next day, Seo-jin couldn't concentrate. During literature class, the words blurred on the page. Her ears rang. She kept catching glimpses of movement in her peripheral vision, but whenever she turned, there was no one there. During lunch, she returned to the main lobby and found the janitor again. He looked up as she approached, and this time he didn't pretend to not know her. You went upstairs, didn't you? I had to see it. You shouldn't have. His voice was tired. That door was sealed for a reason. It was never meant to be opened again. Seo-jin lowered her voice. Who was she? The janitor glanced around, then leaned closer. The girl who never left that stall, she was called Haeyeon. No family, lived in the dorms, always quiet, always last to leave class. One day, she vanished. They say she died in there? No. He looked grim. They say she was forgotten in there. Forgotten? They locked the school down during an emergency drill. Her class forgot to count her. The teachers forgot she was missing. Days passed before anyone realized. And when they opened the stall, she was gone. Only blood and broken fingernails remained. Seo-jin felt sick. Why wall it off? Because she started coming back. He looked into her eyes then, and for the first time, Seo-jin saw real fear. Students heard knocking, whispers. Some said she was asking for help. Others said she was looking for someone to take her place. And now? Now, he whispered, she's listening again. That night, Seo-jin received another message. No number, no contact, just a single text. You remember me now. That means I can come closer. The day passed like a dream she couldn't wake from. Every second in class dragged across Seo-jin's skin like glass. She heard none of the teacher's voice, saw none of the words on the board. Her mind was stuck behind a door on the 4th floor, a door she should never have touched. That night, she returned, not out of curiosity now, but necessity. She had to see it again, had to prove something to herself, or maybe disprove it. Maybe if she opened the door and saw only old tiles and dust, the whispers would stop. Maybe she'd stop feeling like she was being followed. At 2:07 a.m., she slipped from her dorm room. She didn't bother waking Jae-eun. Some things you do alone. The school was silent. Lights off. The stairwell up to the 4th floor greeted her like an open mouth. She climbed slowly, barefoot this time. Every step cold, every step echoing slightly too loud in the dark. At the top, the maintenance door stood open again, just like before, as if it had been expecting her, as if it had been waiting. She stepped into the hallway. No sound, no wind, just stillness, thick and pressing. She made her way to the restroom. The door no longer bore the "out of order" sign. It was gone. So was the rust. The handle gleamed slightly, polished clean. Seo-jin reached out and turned it. This time it opened. The lights buzzed awake above her, one by one, casting a sickly yellow hue on the tiled interior. The stalls lined up along the left wall, identical, numbered, quiet. 1 through 12. And then, at the far end, a strange gap. Not a stall, not an opening, a wall. A section of tile that looked newer, more sealed, more intentional, like it was pretending to be part of the room. But the air around it was different, thicker, damper, wrong, and painted at eye level, nearly faded. 13. Seo-jin stepped closer. The lights overhead flickered. Then she saw it. At the base of the wall, a fine red line, like a hairline crack in porcelain, dried and flaking, but unmistakably blood. She dropped to her knees and touched it. The moment her fingertip met the floor, a breath of air exhaled from beneath the wall. Not wind, not from a vent, a breath. And behind it, a whisper. You opened it. Seo-jin scrambled back, heart hammering. You remember me now. Suddenly, the stall doors on either side of her slammed shut, one by one, like dominoes collapsing. Bang, 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 bang. All 12. Seo-jin stood frozen in the center, staring at the wall. It was no longer blank. On the surface, red writing had appeared. Not paint, not ink. Fingernail scratches. I waited. You were supposed to come back. You promised. Seo-jin couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then something began to push from behind the wall. Not visually, not physically, just a pressure, like someone pressing their forehead to hers from the other side of a thin veil. And then she saw her. A face, not fully visible, not solid, just a pale impression, hollow sockets, black hair clinging to wet cheeks, lips pulled into a line, eyes that knew her. You were my only friend. Seo-jin's vision went white. She woke in the school infirmary. The nurse said she'd been found collapsed in front of the restroom on the 2nd floor, not the 4th. You probably fainted, she offered kindly. These old buildings have poor ventilation. But Seo-jin knew the truth. She'd been upstairs. She'd spoken to something. And now, something had spoken back. Back in class, no one looked at her. No one asked questions. Except for one girl. The one with the braids who'd whispered on Seo-jin's first day. She approached during lunch, quiet as a shadow. You saw it, didn't you? She asked. Seo-jin froze. Saw what? The stall. What do you know about it? The girl hesitated. I had a friend, Un-hee. She used to draw pictures in her sketchbook. Said there was a girl who talked to her from inside the wall. We thought she was imagining things until she stopped coming to school. What happened to her? No one remembers her anymore, not even the teachers, but I do. That's how I know something is wrong. That night, Seo-jin checked the school's digital records, student database. No Hae-yun, no Un-hee, no records, no photos, no ID numbers, as if they had never existed. She searched yearbooks, Same thing, pages ripped, blurred faces, names blacked out. The school had erased them. But why? Around midnight, her phone buzzed again. No number. One message. "You're next. That's why you remember." She tried to delete it. It reappeared. "Don't run." In the mirror above her desk, her reflection wavered slightly, lagged, then blinked, but she hadn't. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the stall on the 4th floor groaned quietly. Inside, in the dark, behind the sealed wall, something stirred, something waiting, something remembering. The week passed in silence. Seo-jin went to class, ate lunch, walked the halls. But something had changed. People moved around her as if she wasn't there. Her teachers paused before calling her name and sometimes skipped it entirely. Her attendance in the ledger was often left blank. It was as if the school had begun to forget she existed, like it was erasing her, slowly, line by line. Jaeun didn't notice at first, but by Thursday she frowned as she passed Seo-jin in the hallway. "Have we met before?" Seo-jin stopped in her tracks. "It's me, Seo-jin. We've been roommates for 3 weeks." Jaeun blinked, confused. "That can't be right. I've had this room to myself all term." She walked away, puzzled, without even a goodbye. Seo-jin stood alone, cold. Her hands were shaking. She returned to the 4th floor that night, not out of curiosity, but fear. A part of her believed that if she didn't confront it, she would vanish completely. Not die, disappear. The corridor greeted her like it always did, lights buzzing faintly, tiles sweating with cold moisture. The restroom door was slightly ajar, breathing darkness into the hallway. She stepped inside. 12 stalls, and then the wall. But now, something was different. There was a mirror leaning against the wall across from the stalls, one that hadn't been there before. Its surface was cracked, fogged, and when Seo-jin looked into it, she saw someone else standing in her place. Not her reflection, not even her face. A girl in the same uniform, but drenched, her hair plastered to her cheeks, her skin pale and bluish. Her eyes were empty, and her mouth moved. "You took my seat." Seo-jin backed away, heart pounding. The mirror shattered, without a sound. The air around her shifted, heavy and wet, and then the lights flickered. All at once, all the stall doors swung open, every single one, except the 13th. That one remained closed, but the wall that sealed it pulsed faintly, like it was breathing. Seo-jin ran. The next morning, she skipped class and went to the library. No one stopped her. No one even saw her. She sat for hours digging through old files, student records, archived announcements, anything from the last 20 years. At the back of a locked filing cabinet, she found it. A list of students marked transferred or withdrawn, no record verified. A full page, 13 names. And at the bottom, circled in red ink, Xie-yun, J, unaccounted, missing. Last seen in girls' restroom, old wing. File closed. She copied the name. She needed to know more. When she asked a librarian about Xie-yun, the woman blinked as if waking from a dream. "That name sounds familiar," she said slowly, "but we haven't had a student by that name in years. Maybe never." "Are you sure?" The woman's face tightened. "I said maybe never." Seo-jin left, but she noticed something behind the librarian's desk. A photo frame, a class picture from over a decade ago, faded but intact. She leaned closer. Row after row of students smiling, but in the bottom corner, someone had been scratched out, not blurred, not censored, clawed away. That night the whisper came back, not through her phone, but through the mirror. As she brushed her hair, her reflection lagged and then stopped. Her own face stared at her blankly, then spoke without moving her lips. She wasn't erased, she was replaced. Seojin froze. The reflection smiled, slightly off, then shattered in a silent ripple across the glass. At 2:13 a.m., Seojin returned to the stall. This time she brought a flashlight, a pack of salt, and a question. She stood before the sealed wall, her heart thudding. "Hyeyeon," she whispered, "who are you?" Nothing. Then the sound of breathing, close, raspy, and behind it another voice, a girl's voice, not a whisper, not a threat, a sob. "I'm still here." Seojin pressed her palm to the tile. "Why me?" "Because you noticed. No one else sees us." "Us?" "The forgotten, the erased." A pause. 13 of us. They locked us in, one by one. Seojin's blood turned to ice. "Why?" No answer. Only the faint echo of scratching from behind the wall, like nails dragging along stone. The next morning, a new girl sat in Seojin's seat. The teacher called roll and didn't mention Seojin once. She raised her hand. "I'm still here." No one looked at her. No one responded. The class moved on. At lunch, she checked her reflection in the window. For the first time, there was nothing there. No face, no outline, no Seojin. She wasn't just being haunted. She was becoming one of them. It began with the sound of a drip, just after midnight. Not from the sink, not from the rain. It came from her ceiling, slow, deliberate. Seojin lay in bed, eyes open, heartbeat echoing in her ears. She didn't bother calling for help. Not anymore. Not since no one remembered her name. She reached for her phone. 2:12 a.m. She knew what would happen next. She knew because the time had become a pattern, a ritual. 2:13 a.m. That was when the veil thinned. That was when the stall started breathing. Her phone buzzed once. Unknown number. No ringtone, just a blank screen with a single text. "I'll see you soon." Then the clock changed. 2:13 a.m. She didn't remember standing, didn't remember opening the door. Only that her feet were bare and cold against the dorm floor. Only that her legs moved on their own. She walked, slowly, silently, through the sleeping corridor, past locked doors and quiet breaths, down the stairwell, across the shadowed lobby, up toward the 4th floor, drawn like a moth to a flame. The hallway was already lit when she arrived. Not flickering, not failing, just waiting. And so was the door, the restroom door. It swung open at her touch. The sound greeted her first, scraping, wet, familiar. 12 stalls, all closed. The 13th, still sealed. But something was different now. There were footprints leading up to the 13th stall. Bare, small, damp. They hadn't been there before. And the mirror, the cracked mirror across from the wall showed something it shouldn't have. A girl. Seojin blinked, looked behind her. No one. She looked again. Still there. A girl with long black hair, drenched as if pulled from a river. Eyes like hollow wells, lips sewn shut with thread. No, with hair. And in her hand, a name tag. Seijin. Then, the lights went out. Total darkness. Except for a faint glow behind the wall, as if something inside the 13th stall had ignited, a heartbeat of red light pulsing like a lantern in fog. Seijin reached forward. She didn't know why. Her fingers found the edge of the wall and pushed. The tile beneath her hand felt soft, breathing, and then it opened, not like a door, more like a mouth. A seam split through the tile, slow and wet, revealing the entrance to something deeper than any stall should go. Not a restroom, not a room, a passage. The air that rushed out was heavy with mold, iron, and something older than dust. Seijin stepped through. Inside, the walls dripped, the floor squelched. The 13th stall wasn't just a hidden space, it was a memory, sealed, pulsing, feeding. And in the center of it stood a girl, small, barefoot, head down. Her hair covered her face. Her uniform was torn, waterlogged, clinging to her bones. She looked like she'd been waiting there for years. "You came," the girl whispered. Her voice echoed strangely as if spoken through water. "I knew you would." "You remember me. That means I can stay." "Stay where?" "In you." Seijin turned to run. The passage was gone. There were no walls anymore, only darkness. And within that darkness, the others. Figures began to emerge, faces half-formed, students with mouths sewn shut, throats slit, eyes gouged. But they weren't attacking. They were watching. Some were crying. Some were reaching for her, not to hurt her, but to hold on. "Help us," they whispered. "Please. You remember. That means we can be real. Please, don't forget us." And then, behind her, the stall snapped shut. She screamed. She woke in her bed, drenched in sweat, gasping. The morning sun bled through the window. Her uniform was folded neatly. Her bag sat untouched. Everything was normal, except for one thing. She looked down her arm. Scratched across the inside of her forearm, as if carved in sleep, was a single word: stay. In class, her desk was gone. In the hallway, students passed through her like mist. On the attendance sheet, her name was no longer missing. It had been replaced. A new name, a girl she didn't know, one who now wore her face. She tried to log into her school portal, denied. She tried to call her parents, no answer. Her phone contact list was empty, except for one saved name, 13. And at 2:13 a.m. that night, she didn't resist. She stood, she walked, she descended. The stall was open, and this time she stepped inside willingly. Seojin didn't remember walking back, but she woke in her dorm bed, hair damp, skin sticky with cold sweat, fingernails packed with gray dust. There was no mud on the floor, no blood, nothing, except for the mirror above her desk, cracked clean down the middle. And drawn in the fog of the glass, as if by a fingertip, was a single word: stay. She didn't go to class that day. No one noticed. She wandered instead, through the halls, down into the archives, past the lockers, past the classrooms, as if searching for something she couldn't name. And eventually, she found herself outside the janitor's closet. The old man was inside, sitting in a folding chair, eyes closed. She knocked once. He opened them, not startled, as if he'd known she was coming. "You saw her again?" he said softly. Seojin nodded. "I need to know what's happening to me." He exhaled, slowly, then motioned for her to sit. "Do you know how long I've worked here?" he asked. "No." 33 years. He gave a small, bitter laugh. "That stall, it's been sealed and unsealed more times than they'll admit." "Who is she?" "She was one of the first." Seojin leaned forward. "One of the first what?" "The first they forgot." His gaze darkened. "Back then, they used to lock students in that stall as punishment, for skipping class, for being different, for talking too much or not enough. It was unofficial, a secret." Seojin's skin prickled. "They locked them in there? Alone?" He nodded. "Most only spent an hour. Some spent longer. One girl, Hye-yeon, was left in over a weekend." "She never came out?" "They opened the door and she was gone. But the scratches, the blood..." He trailed off. Seojin whispered, "And then?" "Then others began to vanish. Girls mostly. Quiet ones. Lonely ones. One by one." He looked at her, something like grief in his eyes. "The school covered it up. They erased their files, reassigned their seats, told the parents they transferred, moved abroad, ran away." "But the stall remembers," Seojin said quietly. "Yes," the janitor whispered. "It always remembers." That night she returned to the library. She bypassed the computer system, the school's sanitized database. She went deeper, to the physical archives, the ones with dust and broken spines. There she found the old incident logs, stamped, signed, hidden behind years of silence. Case file 1989, student missing, last seen near old wing restroom, declared runaway, disciplinary file sealed. Case file 1995, student suffered psychotic break, claimed voices in stall number 13, transferred to mental facility, record sealed. Case file 2003, student vanished after fire drill, CCTV wiped, declared truant, replaced on class roster. No official report filed. 13 girls, all gone, all unaccounted for, all replaced. She looked at her own student file next, accessed through a backdoor admin terminal she'd discovered weeks ago. Seojin, Y. Status, active. Dorm 213. Class 2C. Seat 12. And then, suddenly, before her eyes, the screen flickered. The name blinked, then changed. Seojin, Y. Deceased. Date of death, TBA. Record, pending deletion. She stared in horror. The text blinked once more, then vanished. When she refreshed the page, her file was gone. She was no longer in the system. She stumbled from the library and wandered into the courtyard. The air felt wrong, heavy, still, The trees didn't rustle, the wind didn't blow. She passed a group of students eating snacks on a bench. One of them looked up. For a moment, their eyes met, and then they looked right through her, as if she was glass. She fled to the one place that had never lied to her, the stall. She burst into the fourth-floor restroom, slammed the door, turned toward the sealed wall, and it was open. Not fully, but ajar, the crack wide enough to see into the blackness beyond. Inside, the smell of rot and mildew, and a soft humming, a child's lullaby, warped and slow. "I'm here," Seojin whispered. The humming stopped. And then, a voice, soft, sad. "Do you still remember me?" "Yes." "Then don't leave. If you remember, you can help us out." "Help you how?" "Let us out." The crack widened slightly, the temperature dropped, and something began to crawl from the shadows, not fully visible, not fully real, just a shape, a form, a girl rising slowly from beneath the tiles, her body broken at odd angles, face twitching. She reached out towards Seojin. "Please, don't forget me." Seojin wan, but as she passed the mirror on her way out, she saw her own face dissolve. In its place, a blank smear. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, just skin stretched tight across emptiness, the face of the erased. Back in her dorm, she found her room empty. No furniture, no suitcase, no toothbrush, no photos. Like no one had ever lived there. She sat on the floor until sunrise, staring at her hands, watching them slowly lose color, lose weight, lose presence. She was slipping, and unless she found a way to anchor herself, she would become just another name crossed out in red ink, just another file marked pending deletion. The night was colder than before. Not the kind of cold that prickled the skin. This was deeper. A stillness that sank into the bones. A silence that suffocated. Seojin stood before the mirror in the first-floor bathroom, staring at her reflection. Except it wasn't her. Not anymore. The girl in the glass wore her uniform, had her posture, her shape, but the eyes were wrong. Flat, drained of light. There was something else behind them, a different presence staring out. And then the mouth moved. It's getting harder to stay. She didn't know where else to go. She'd tried the dorm, the library, the courtyard, even the front gate. No one saw her. No one answered. The school had moved on without her, but the stall had not. It remembered, and it was calling again. At 2:08 a.m., Seojin opened the stairwell door to the fourth floor. Lights flickered before she touched the switch. The hallway was already lit, just for her. Each step felt rehearsed, like she'd walked this path 100 times, like she belonged to it. The restroom door creaked open on its own. Inside, silence. 12 stalls untouched, and at the far end, the 13th, still sealed, but pulsing faintly with breath, a heartbeat in tile. She stepped closer. Her fingers hovered near the crack in the wall. Then, a sound. Faint, muffled. A voice. No, Voices, multiple, layered, weaving in and out of each other like wind through reeds, all whispering at once. Don't leave us. We're still here. They forgot. You remembered. That means we're real. Please help us. Sojin's throat tightened. What do you want me to do? The voices hushed. Then one rose above the rest, soft, familiar. Let me show you. The wall peeled open like skin split at the seam. Beyond it, darkness, but not emptiness. A corridor stretched inside, twisted, narrow, breathing with its own rhythm. Sojin stepped through. The door behind her vanished. The air inside was thick and wet. Moss covered the floor. Hair hung from the ceiling like vines. Scraps of school uniforms floated in the shadows. Books, shoes, photos, all soaked and decaying. She passed a desk. Her name was carved into it, not by her, by someone else who knew she'd sit there one day. A prediction, or a promise. The tunnel led to a circular room. A mirror stood in the center, but it didn't show her. It showed the others. 13 girls, each trapped in their own reflections, pounding against invisible glass. Eyes wide, mouths open in screams that couldn't be heard. One of them, the girl with long black hair, reached out. Her palm met the inside of the mirror. Blood seeped from her fingertips. Sojin reached back. Their hands met, glass to glass, and suddenly she was somewhere else. A memory, a vision. She was standing in the stall, but it was decades ago. The tiles were clean, the mirror unbroken. Outside, laughter echoed. A bell rang for class, and a girl, Hyeon, sat on the toilet lid, hugging her knees. They said I talked too much, so they put me here, just for a while. Time passed. The lights turned off. No one came back. She scratched the wall. She cried. She begged. Days passed. Her voice went hoarse. The stall never opened again until she stopped breathing. The memory ended. Sojin staggered back into her body. She was in the circular room again. The voices rose in chorus. They locked us away. They erased our names. They told the world we never existed. But we were real. You have to tell them. Let them hear us. Sojin's throat tightened. How? The room answered in unison. Open the stall. All the way. Let the school see. Let them remember. She turned back toward the corridor. But something was waiting there. Not a ghost, not a voice. A shape, shifting, crawling, covered in ink and paper. A being made from forgotten files, documents, forms, shredded student records, class photos torn down the middle. It had no face, only hands, and it reached for her. She turned and ran, through the corridor, back toward the entrance, but the door was gone again. Behind her the paper thing followed. Whispers echoed in her ears, some screaming, some crying. She spun in a panic. Nowhere to go. No exit. She closed her eyes and screamed. She woke in the nurse's office, the same nurse as before, only this time the woman stared at her with recognition. "Sojin, you're back," she said softly. Sojin's throat was dry.
What happened? You fainted outside the library. They said you were looking for records. So-jin sat up slowly. Do you remember me? The nurse was confused. Of course, why wouldn't I? Tears burned at the corners of So-jin's eyes. No reason. But deep inside, she knew something was different. Something had shifted. The voices behind the wall were growing louder, and the boundary between their world and hers was beginning to thin. That night at 2:13 a.m., she sat awake in bed, waiting, listening. But the whisper didn't come from the phone, or the mirror, or the stall. It came from inside her own head. And it said, "You've seen us. Now they will too."
When the sun rose, Se-jin sat alone beneath the courtyard tree, watching the other students walk past as if she wasn't there. Some looked straight at her and blinked in confusion, as if something was blocking their memory, dulling recognition. Others didn't glance at her at all. She opened her school-issued tablet, fingers trembling slightly. One last place to check. The forum. The school student forum wasn't popular anymore, a relic from years before. The interface was clunky. Most students had moved on to newer platforms. But old things had a habit of remembering what the new ones refused to see. Se-jin typed slowly. 13th stall, old restroom. Voices, missing girls. No search results. She tried again. Hey, Yan. Again, nothing. She scrolled deeper into archived threads, and then she found it. Thread title: The Door That Doesn't Close. Anyone else seen it? Posted by user Forgotten123. Date: 5 years ago. Every night at the same time, the knock, 3 times, then the whisper, "Are you still there?" I thought it was a dream, but I keep waking up in front of the 4th floor restroom. No one believes me, but I know she's real. There were no replies, no likes. The account had been deactivated. But Se-jin clicked on the profile anyway. 1 post, 1 comment, and 1 saved draft. She opened it. If you're reading this, it means you saw her too. They'll say you're crazy, or worse, they'll forget you. But keep going. Follow the messages. When the mirror breaks, when your name disappears, when no one answers your calls, that's when you're close. The final ritual happens under the blood moon. She's waiting for someone to finish what she couldn't. We can still free her. Bring the mirror, bring the salt, bring her name. Se-jin closed the file. Her heart thundered in her chest. There was a way, a ritual, a blood moon. She searched the calendar. One was coming, in 3 nights. She didn't know if that was fate or curse, but she knew this. It was her only chance. That night, the voices returned, but not from behind a wall, not from a cracked mirror. They came from her tablet. The screen glitched, the light dimmed. A new forum post appeared, undated, no author, just this. You're almost ready. You just have to remember who you were before you took her place. Se-jin blinked. What does that mean? Another message appeared instantly. Not all who vanish start as strangers. You weren't the first. You were next.
The screen went black. The next day, she began searching for anything that would help. In the school supply room, she found rock salt used for winter weather. She took a pouch. From the art classroom, a shard of mirror, broken, sharp, small enough to carry in her sleeve. And from the file room, she retrieved one more name, Jung Hae-yeon, printed in faded ink, attached to a photo now yellowing at the edges. She didn't look like a monster. She looked like her. Same black hair, same slouched shoulders, same tired eyes. Se-jin stared at the photo for a long time, then whispered, "I remember you now." And the lights in the file room flickered in response. Back in the dorm that night, Se-jin sat cross-legged in the dark. In her hand, the mirror shard. On the floor, a circle of salt. She said nothing, did nothing, just waited. At exactly 2:13 a.m., the lights cut out. The mirror in her hand began to frost over, a film of moisture crawling across the glass like breath. And then a face appeared. Hae-yeon, mouth moving, no sound. But Se-jin heard her anyway, not through ears, but through the space between thoughts. 3 nights left. When the moon turns red, the gate will open. If you bring my name, I can leave. What happens if I fail? Se-jin asked. The mirror cracked deeper. A thin thread split the reflection in two. Then you take my place for good. She nodded, not out of courage, but because there was no other ending left for her. Not in this world, not anymore. At lunch the next day, she passed by her own class. A new girl sat in her chair. A girl named Se-jin. Same name, same ID, same face, but different. As if someone had recreated her from memory and missed a few details. Se-jin stared at her through the glass window of the door, and the girl looked back. For a second, confusion. Then nothing. She turned back to her book. The teacher called her name. She answered. Se-jin stepped away. She was no longer part of this story. Not in the living world. Not anymore. That night she returned to the forum one last time. All her previous posts had vanished, but a new thread was pinned to the top of the page. Thread title, "The One Who Remembers," posted by 13th Whisper. When the school forgets, the stall remembers. When the system deletes, the blood rewrites. If you read this, you're the next anchor. Don't be afraid. Her name is Hae-yeon. Say it during the red moon. Say it loud enough for the walls to bleed. And below that, a final line. You have 3 days left. After that, the door seals forever. The night before the blood moon, the sky turned an unnatural shade of gray. Thick clouds drifted over the city like slow smoke, muffling even the streetlights. Se-jin stood at the edge of the rooftop, watching it all. Her fingers gripped the salt pouch in her coat pocket. The mirror shard was taped to her inner sleeve. Her name, her real name, was beginning to feel foreign on her tongue. Because tonight, she wouldn't be Se-jin. She would be the anchor. She hadn't spoken to anyone in days. No one seemed to notice. Her dorm bed was unmade. Her locker was empty. Her textbooks untouched. But somehow, her absence didn't create a void. Someone else was always there, filling it. She was the shadow of herself, a reflection with no glass. At midnight, she crept back into the school. The gates didn't stop her. The cameras didn't blink. The building welcomed her now, because she belonged to it. The fourth floor buzzed softly when she arrived. The air hung thick with a coppery scent. As she passed the classroom doors, she saw shadows inside, moving, whispering. Not students, not teachers. Echoes. The memory of those who never left. Inside the restroom, the light had already failed, but the 13th stall wasn't dark. It glowed faintly from within, red like coals. The crack had widened, waiting. The mirror shard in her pocket pulsed with cold. The air shimmered, and then a whisper. It's time. She stepped into the stall. The space inside bent around her, far deeper than it should have been, as if the walls folded outward into a tunnel no one else could see. At the center, a porcelain basin cracked with age. Surrounding it, 13 small dolls, hand-stitched, headless, each with a red string tied tightly around their necks, each wearing miniature versions of school uniforms from different decades. And in the far corner, barely lit, a name carved into the tile. Hye-yeon. Se-jin knelt. She began to draw the salt circle as the forum post had instructed, clockwise, unbroken, whispering the name with each rotation. Young Hye-yeon, Young Hye-yeon, Young Hye-yeon. Her voice trembled, her breath turned visible, like frost in the air. The porcelain began to rattle. The dolls turned on their own, one by one, facing her. And then a deep rumble from beneath the tiles, a sound like bones shifting. The blood moon had risen, and the stall had awakened. Suddenly the mirror shard in her hand cracked. She held it up, and in her fractured reflection, she saw them. 13 girls, some crying, some staring blankly, some smiling with mouths sewn shut. And in the center, Hye-yeon, her eyes locked with Se-jin's. You brought my name. Se-jin nodded. I remember you, and I'm not the only one. You were real. The tile beneath her feet began to pulse, a heartbeat rising. Then say it again, louder this time. Young Hye-yeon. The salt circle erupted in flame, white, silent, pure. A howling wind spiraled upward from the basin, ripping through the air like a scream caught in time. The dolls ignited one by one, their red strings curling into ash. The restroom walls shook, but Se-jin didn't move. She stood in the center of it all and shouted her name again, Young Hye-yeon! And from within the crack in the wall, something stepped out. Not broken, not twisted, but whole. Hye-yeon, no longer dripping, no longer shadowed. Her face was calm, her eyes full. She stepped into the circle, and for a moment, everything stopped. You freed me, she whispered. Se-jin nodded, tears streaking her cheeks. They should have never forgotten you. They will remember now, because of you. Se-jin opened her arms, but Hye-yeon didn't embrace her. She reached behind Se-jin and pressed a hand to her back, gently. Now it's your turn to leave. Se-jin blinked. Wait, what? Someone always has to stay. The salt circle collapsed. The mirror cracked apart. The tiles above glowed red and then black. Hye-yeon smiled, and Se-jin screamed and woke in the nurse's office. This time the room was bright. Sunlight flooded the windows. She sat up slowly, confused. The nurse turned, smiling. Ah, Se-jin, You fainted in study hall. You're all right now." Seijin blinked. "You remember me?" "Of course." "And Hye-yeon?" The nurse tilted her head. "Who?" Seijin smiled faintly. That was enough. She stood and walked toward the door. Her name was back on the school roll. Her dorm was intact. Her classmate waved when she entered the room. The world had turned forward again. But as she passed by the restroom that evening, she stopped and turned to the 13th stall. Still sealed, still quiet. But this time, a new name was etched beneath the tile. Seijin.
For the next 2 days, Seijin lived in the illusion of normalcy. Her name was called again during roll. Her roommate waved like nothing had ever changed. The teachers acknowledged her. The students laughed beside her. It was as if the school had pressed reset, and she had been restored from backup. But Seijin knew better. She had walked into the heart of the school's rot. She had spoken to the forgotten. She had performed the ritual. And yet, something still felt unfinished. Every night, she dreamed of the stall, but not how it had been before. Now it appeared to her open, wide and endless, like a mouth yawning into a void. And inside, instead of Hye-yeon, she saw herself, curled in the corner, mouth sewn shut, whispers curling out of her skin like smoke. Each time she reached for that reflection of herself, it whispered back, "You left, but the door never closed." On the 3rd night, she received a message. Not on her phone, not in her inbox, on her mirror. Written in steam, though the glass wasn't fogged. "Come back, one last time." Underneath, a second line appeared as she stared. "You didn't finish it." That evening, she climbed the stairs again. Her hands trembled. This time, the door to the 4th floor was already wide open. The lights in the hall flickered violently, like they were struggling to stay alive. And the restroom door was gone. Not open, gone. Just a gaping black archway in the wall, as if the school itself had swallowed the frame. Seijin stepped through. The restroom had changed. The stalls were twisted, misaligned. Some melted into the floor, some fused together. The ceiling was pulsing, breathing in slow intervals. The 13th stall stood open now, wider than before, glowing faintly from within. It no longer felt like a hiding place. It felt like a trap. And Seijin was walking straight into it. Inside, the space warped again. The tiles beneath her shoes shifted like sand. The mirror fragment in her sleeve twitched, then snapped with a sharp sound. She dropped to her knees, dizzy. And when she looked up, she was not alone. A circle of girls surrounded her, each with sunken eyes and pale skin, each with a missing name tag, each flickering like a dying flame. "You opened the way," they whispered in unison. "You let her out." Seijin nodded slowly. "I thought that was what you wanted." A single voice emerged from the center, clearer, older, but not smiling. "It was never about letting her out." Seijin turned.
Hye-yeon stood at the far end of the space, no longer sad, no longer afraid, but not smiling. It was about finishing what she started. "What do you mean?" Se-jin asked, backing away. "This place isn't a prison. It's a door." The girls around her stepped forward, one by one, their fingers outstretched, not grabbing, not yet, but reaching. The stall doesn't want to be closed again. It needs a voice, a memory to feed it, and anchor. Se-jin's voice cracked. "I gave you your name. I brought you back." Hye-yeon nodded. "Yes, and now you take mine." The walls groaned, the floor fractured beneath her feet, and suddenly Se-jin was falling. She landed in the center of the original stall, no longer twisted, no longer warped, just cold, cramped, silent. She tried to move, but her limbs were heavy. Her voice stuck in her throat. The door in front of her clicked shut, locked. She screamed, but no sound came. Only the echo of others, dozens of them. Girls whispering, begging, crying, "Let us out! Let someone remember! Please!" Se-jin pounded on the stall door. "I'm not one of you!" But outside the door, she heard footsteps, approaching. Someone was entering the restroom. A girl. She sat in the stall beside hers, and then paused. "Hello," she called. "Is someone there?" Se-jin tried to answer. Her mouth moved. No words came. The door wouldn't open. Her reflection had become the next whisper, behind the wall. From the far corner of the stall, something appeared. A mirror. Cracked, warped, and within it, Se-jin's face, pale, hollow-eyed, mouth sealed with invisible thread. She pressed her hand to the glass, and on the other side, she saw the new girl doing the same. "Who are you?" the girl asked softly, and the mirror answered with fogged writing. One word. Hye-yeon. The ritual wasn't about freedom. It was about inheritance. The lock had turned, and Se-jin had taken her place.
The porcelain doll was waiting on her desk. Se-jin stared at it in silence, too afraid to touch it. It hadn't been there the night before. Her dorm room had been empty, cold, quiet, just as it always was now. But sometime during the dark hours, someone or something had placed it there. A perfect little doll with blank eyes, dressed in the exact same school uniform Se-jin wore, its hands stitched neatly at its sides, its mouth sewn shut with crimson thread. And around its neck hung a name tag, Se-jin. She didn't remember screaming, but when she opened her eyes, the doll was gone, and in its place, a folded piece of paper, yellowed, burnt at the edges. She unfolded it slowly. Her hands shook. A paper doll, roughly cut, drawn with ink that looked like it had been diluted with tears or blood. The figure had no face, no features, just a blank body in a school uniform. And in the center of the paper, written in delicate script, "One leaves, another stays. The porcelain breaks, the paper remembers." The stall wasn't haunting her anymore. It was inviting her, as if to say, "You're one of us now. You've seen the inside. You've whispered the name. You've walked the path. Now it's your turn to take the next step." That day, she passed by the art room. On the bulletin board, pinned among dozens of colorful projects, her eyes caught something strange. Paper dolls. Dozens of them, cut from the same thin material, drawn in the same shape. No faces, no hands, just name tags, each labeled with a single first name. Most of them she didn't recognize, but a few stood out. Hyeon, Eunhee, Jisoo. And pinned at the very bottom, half hidden behind the frame, Sejin. Her legs almost gave out. She reached forward, tried to pull the doll free, but it was nailed to the corkboard. Thin silver tacks through the shoulders. Blood rose to the surface of her palms as she tried to tug it loose. It wouldn't move. The teacher appeared behind her. A quiet woman with a hollow voice. "Beautiful, aren't they?" she said softly. Sejin didn't respond. The woman reached out and adjusted one of the paper dolls delicately. "My students made these. Every year, a new batch. But some names just keep coming back." Sejin turned slowly. "Do you remember who made this one?" The teacher smiled faintly. "No, that one's always just there when I arrive in the morning." That night, the doll returned, sitting upright on her pillow. This time, its mouth was unstitched. The thread lay coiled beside it, soaked in something dark. She picked it up, and the doll spoke, not aloud, but in the silence of her mind. The paper remembers the name. The porcelain carries the soul. She opened her desk drawer. Inside, 13 dolls, all porcelain, all silent, all dressed like girls she had read about in the forum, girls no one else remembered, one for each. And hers had joined them, neatly, delicately, placed right in the center. The mirror above the sink cracked again, not from pressure, but from sound. A whisper so high-pitched, so thin, it peeled across the glass like a blade. And then, the reflection changed. The room behind her remained the same, but Sejin's face was not her own. It was the doll's. Porcelain skin, black, glassy eyes, a seam across the mouth, a thread dangling from the corner of her lips. She reached up, and her hand felt cold, smooth, not skin, but ceramic. She screamed, but no sound came out. The porcelain broke. The paper remained. She woke on the floor, drenched in sweat. Her breath came in shallow gasps. Her hands were her own again, but her mouth tasted like dust. A message glowed on her tablet screen. She hadn't opened it. It hadn't made a sound, but there it was. "They're ready. Bring them all." She returned to the stall that night. The hallway darker than ever. The walls felt closer, breathing, pulsing, whispering. The dolls were wrapped in a white cloth, 13 in total, each carried carefully. As she entered the bathroom, the light overhead popped. Darkness fell, but the 13th stall glowed red. Its door hung open. Inside,
the circle of names, the porcelain basin, the paper dolls hung on the walls, fluttering slightly, though there was no breeze. And in the center, one empty space, just large enough for one more doll. Hers. She stepped inside, and the stall locked behind her.
She didn't remember falling asleep, but she woke in the stall, the 13th, again. Except now, it was different. No longer cracked or rotting. The porcelain was clean. The mirror above the sink was whole. The floor tiles shone. It looked new, but it wasn't, because etched into the wall, deep and dark, were names. 13 of them. Each one carved by hand, each name layered over time. Some written in Korean, some in English, one in Japanese. All scratched into the bones of the building, the way the school tried to forget them, but never really could. So-jin ran her fingers over the first. Haeyeon, the one who started it all. As she moved down the list, a memory stirred with each name. Eun-hee, the girl who painted her nightmares in watercolor until one day she vanished mid-semester. Jisoo, who spoke to the mirror until it cracked, whispering secrets no one understood. Nari, So-young, Minju, all stories swept under the rug, all erased. The 13th name was blank, waiting. So-jin's hand trembled as she reached for the nearby shard of porcelain, the same one she'd used during the ritual. She didn't want to do it. She didn't want to write it. But something inside her moved her hand. She scratched the surface of the tile with slow, shaking strokes. The name revealed itself line by line. Her name. So-jin. As the final letter carved in, the mirror above her rippled, and the reflections of all 13 girls appeared behind her. None of them screamed, none of them cried. They just stared. Their faces were still, pale, remembered. "You finished the circle," Haeyeon whispered from the center. "You made it real again." So-jin's voice cracked. "What happens now?" "You become what we needed." "What did you need?" "A witness." The lights overhead buzzed violently. From the ceiling, a string descended, red thread knotted like a noose. Tied to it was a new paper doll, her own, blank-eyed, drawn in perfect detail. No mouth, just a name. So-jin. "If no one speaks our names, we vanish," Haeyeon said. "So I speak them, one by one," So-jin replied. She turned toward the mirror and began to whisper. "Haeyeon, Eun-hee, Jisoo, Nari, So-young, Minju." Each name spoken brought light back to a face. Each syllable rethreaded a lost memory. When she finished, the stall door creaked open. The restroom returned to silence. But now, the 13th stall had a plaque, one that read, "In remembrance of the 13 lost, may they never be erased again." She stepped out, expecting to wake up, but she didn't. This wasn't a dream anymore. She was still inside the school, still breathing, still real. She returned to the administration office. No one stopped her. On the wall, a plaque of honor listed the school's founders, donors, and alumni. But now, at the bottom, freshly added, Jung Haeyeon, remembered. That night, she lay in bed with the porcelain doll pressed to her chest. It was warm now,
and when she closed her eyes, she heard it hum, a soft tune, a lullaby, one she somehow knew, though she had never heard it before, a song sung to her by all 13 names. And she wept, not out of fear, but out of release. Somewhere, deep inside the walls of the school, the 13th stall stood sealed. But on the other side of it, there were no more screams, only silence and peace.
The following morning, the sky over Seoul was colorless. No clouds, no blue, just the soft, empty gray of forgotten things. Seo-jin watched from her dorm window, her reflection faint against the glass. Her uniform felt lighter today. The air didn't press so heavy against her lungs. For the first time in weeks, she almost believed she had escaped. Almost. In the halls, laughter echoed. Students whispered about exams, about rumors, about the weekend. When Seo-jin walked among them, they didn't stare through her anymore. They smiled. They spoke. They called her name. She should have been relieved, but when she heard it, her name, it didn't sound right anymore. It didn't belong to her. It belonged to the stall. She began noticing small changes. The way her reflection lagged for half a second. The way her shadow stretched slightly longer than her body. The faint echo of her footsteps, as if someone else walked behind her, keeping pace. When she turned, no one was there. During lunch, she found the janitor again, sitting on his usual bench in the courtyard. He was peeling an orange, his movements slow, almost ritualistic. She approached quietly. "You were right," she said. He didn't look up. "About what?" "About the stall, the girls, everything." "And yet you went anyway." "Someone had to remember them." "And now you do." He looked at her then, eyes sunken but kind. "But memory has a price." Seo-jin frowned. "What price?" "The school forgets who it hurts by forgetting who you are." He dropped a slice of orange into her hand. It was cold, soft, almost translucent. When she looked back up, he was gone. That night, her textbooks were blank. Not the covers, the pages. White, clean, no words. Her name on her ID card had faded too, the ink bleeding into the plastic. She rubbed her thumb over it until it disappeared completely. And when she whispered her name aloud, it came out broken, like static. She ran to the bathroom, turned on the faucet, splashed her face with cold water. When she looked up at the mirror, she froze. Her reflection was Hye-yeon. "You freed me," the reflection whispered. "But the school still needs one to hold the memory." "No," Seo-jin breathed. "No, you said it was over." "It's never over. The forgotten are hungry. They need someone to remember their names." "Then let me forget too." Hye-yeon smiled gently. "That's what they all said before they disappeared." Seo-jin backed away. The mirror rippled. The lights flickered. A faint knocking echoed from deep within the pipes. Knock, knock, knock. She clutched her chest. Her heart felt heavy, not from fear, but from inevitability. The ritual hadn't freed them. It had reset them. The curse wasn't about ghosts. It was about memory. And now she was becoming the next one to be erased. In class the next morning, the teacher took attendance. "Hye-yeon?" Silence. "Absent again." "Seo-jin?" Pause. "Who?"
The students looked around, puzzled. "There's no Seo-jin in this class, sir." The teacher checked his list. She wasn't on it. That night, her dorm room light flickered. Her bed was empty, her suitcase gone, her side of the room bare. The roommate hummed softly while scrolling through her phone, not noticing that the other half of the room no longer existed. Seo-jin stood in the corner, unseen, listening, waiting. The stall door opened in her dreams, the 13th one. The light inside was red again, but calmer this time. No screaming, no whispers. Only a single porcelain doll on the floor, its eyes closed. It wore her uniform. Its tag said, Hye-yeon. Seo-jin picked it up, brushing dust from her hair. A voice, faint and kind, filled the air around her. "You can rest now." "Who are you?" she asked. "The last one who tried to leave." She smiled. For the first time, it didn't hurt. "Then it's my turn." In the morning, the janitor unlocked the restroom for inspection. Everything was spotless. No red stains, no cracks, no sound. But when he reached the last stall, his key stopped. It wouldn't turn. He sighed, placed his hand on the cool metal, and whispered, "Welcome back." Inside, a faint sound echoed, a voice too quiet for the living to hear. "Remember me, but not for long." The mirror flickered, and under the name Seo-jin, another was being carved, slowly, painfully, letter by letter. A new girl, a new beginning, a new forgotten. There was a rumor at Hangul Academy. Not the one about the 13th stall. That one had faded, passed down like a poorly remembered ghost story. This was a newer one, quieter, more unsettling. It whispered that sometimes, when a student was alone in the bathroom after dark, they would see a reflection that wasn't theirs. Sometimes it was subtle, a girl brushing her hair in the mirror with a face too pale, too still. Sometimes it would knock from the other side of the stall. And sometimes, if you stayed too long, you'd forget why you came in. And when you left, you'd be someone else entirely. Years passed. Seo-jin's name became a whisper, then a myth, then nothing. Hye-yeon's plaque on the wall faded with time. Eventually, it was removed during renovations. Not relevant to current students, the principal said. The restroom on the 4th floor was locked permanently after a student reported seeing a girl writing names into the mirror in blood. They replaced it with a vending machine. But the knocking never stopped. 1 year later, a new girl arrived at Hangul Academy. Quiet, soft-spoken, hair tied in a perfect braid. Her name tag read Jin So, and no one could quite remember when she had enrolled. She sat in the same seat Seo-jin once did, by the window, 3rd row. The sun caught her eyes in a way that made them look glassy. She didn't speak much, but when she did, her voice was low, careful. Her classmates liked her, well enough, but none of them noticed that she never blinked during roll call, and that when her name was spoken, she never answered the first time, only on the second, as if she were remembering who she was supposed to be. Late one night, Jin-so found herself wandering the hallways. She couldn't sleep.
The walls of the dorm felt too thin. The mirrors kept fogging, even without steam. And her dreams were full of voices she didn't recognize, but mourned anyway. She climbed to the 4th floor. The hallway was sealed, the bathroom door hidden behind a new panel of drywall and school safety signs, but she found it anyway. The seam of the wall called to her. She pressed her hand against it. It was warm, like someone was holding a hand against the other side. And then she heard it. 3 soft knocks, then the whisper, "Is someone there?" She didn't answer. She just stood there, listening, her breath slow, her eyes fixed on the wall. Inside the stall, something stirred. Not angry, not cruel, just waiting. And behind the mirror, 13 girls watched, some smiling, some crying. All of them remembered now. And in the center, a 14th doll sat on the porcelain basin, new, untouched, its name tag still blank. Jinso leaned close to the wall, and in the reflection of her phone screen, she saw a flash of someone else's face, someone who had once been named Sojin. And behind her, the shadow of a girl whose name had been scratched into tile and torn from memory. She smiled, a small, knowing smile, then whispered, "I remember you." The school lights flickered. Somewhere deep inside the walls, a porcelain crack split with a sound like a sigh, and the door to the 13th stall, the one no one believed in anymore, opened just wide enough for memory to slip through. There was never a curse, only a promise. If someone remembers you, you are never truly gone. But for someone to be remembered, someone else must be forgotten. So if you hear a knock behind you, if the mirror fogs for no reason, if the stall beside you whispers your name, don't answer, don't speak, and whatever you do, don't forget her.